Thanks so much for joining me today on this episode of As It Relates to Podcasting. I am chatting with my guest, Lauren Cobello, over the next 3 or so episodes. If you haven't listened to the first one, be sure to go back and listen because we're talking all about PR, we're talking about media, we're talking about speaking, we're talking about books, and how you can use that to elevate your podcast. In today's episode specifically, we are talking about the overall strategy of brand building using books, PR, and speaking gigs. We're talking about how to develop a strategy behind it, how far in advance you should plan your strategy if you are launching a book, how you can use all 3 of these outlets interchangeably, and her best tips on how to start. She shares some industry secrets as well throughout our entire series and things that she just doesn't typically share publicly. So I'm really grateful that she did that so that you can hear it. So if you are planning on launching a book right now, or you know someone who might be sure to connect this podcast with them, share this episode with them so that they can hear it and they can elevate their own launch as well and learn from all of Lauren's incredible tips. Before we get into our conversation, let me share a little bit about Lauren with you. She is the founder and CEO of Leverage with Media PR, a renowned national TV personality, 3-time best-selling author, and a prominent figure in the world of entrepreneurship and PR. She has been a regular lifestyle TV personality on national TV shows like The Today Show, Good Morning America, Dr. Oz, Rachel Ray, and hundreds of others over the last decade. If you love what you're hearing today, leave us 5 stars. A rating and review goes a super long way in helping us get into the hands of more creators just like yourself. So with that in mind, let's get into this conversation with Lauren. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of our 4-part series on the podcast. Today, we're talking about strategy. We're talking about building a brand. We're talking about using a book and PR and speaking gigs all interchangeably. So first, let's talk about the strategy behind all of this, because I know that this is I think that this is kind of what you love the most is talking about that strategy side and that strategy piece. So let's talk about the strategy behind this, building a brand, using a book, PR, and speaking gigs.
So this is the part that I geek out over, right? And this is the part that I love so much because this is what changed my life as a business owner, right? So I started a business as a personal finance creator back in 2008. And I thought to myself, I want to write a book someday. So I wrote a couple, not really knowing self-published ones. And so the strategy behind what I did with my business was I want to get enough media exposure to then get a really big book deal, which I did with this one, which was with Hachette, which is the number 2 book publishing place in the country.
Love it.
And then use that book to then propel more national media, which then will propel more business and speaking engagements, right? So that was the strategy from the beginning of how do I use the book to do media to then get on a national stage and do speaking and then create this $1 million business, right? That was my strategy. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because it literally changed my life, to go from being a nobody, being like a stay-at-home mom to now being on national television. I have been a regular on the Today Show with Hoda and Jenna, a regular on Rachel Ray for over 6 years. I was a regular on the Dr. Oz show, Good Morning America, Inside Edition. I've been on all the national shows. And I've been doing this for over 10 years. It literally changed my life. It changed my business. And it's a strategy that nobody else is talking about. Nobody else is teaching. And it's I want to do this. This is what, fires me up about what I get to do now at my agency is teach this strategy to our clients.
I love that. And as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, how many entrepreneurs launch a book and have no idea how to actually market it? You just write this book, you have no brand, you've built nothing alongside while you're creating this book. Sure, maybe people know who you are, but who's supposed to buy the book when it goes live if there's no brand behind it?
Yeah, it's true. And this is the biggest problem. And I see it time and time again because I talk with authors all day long. And entrepreneurs all day long as they spend all of their time and energy and money writing the book. And then they get what I call book PTSD, which we all get, Okay. It's kind of like the entrepreneurs that make it are the ones that get used to being able to hear no all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that, I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years. And it's only because I have gotten very comfortable with hearing no and failure have I been able to be around for 18 years. Those of us that have been around this long, that's why. Because it's not because we're lucky or work harder than anybody else. It's because we are very comfortable with being uncomfortable and pushing through until we succeed, right? It's the same thing with authors. The authors that make it are the ones who get past that moment of like, I don't want to look at this book for one stinking second longer. I hate this thing. And every author goes through it. We get to the end of writing it and we were like, I don't even want to look at this. I'm so tired. I've been working on this for like 2 years, a year, 6 months, whatever timeline. And then they don't market it. And they just like expect to put it up on Amazon and like people sell it. And they tell their grandparents and their mom and their aunt and their uncle and their email list. And they expect for it to sell. No, like book sales are a very repeatable strategy. I know how to do it. Our team knows how to do it. Becoming a bestseller is a very like, it's a very like, it's a strategy. PR is a strategy. You just have to be willing to like invest the time and the money to do it and not give up at the end and give up to the book PTSD when you were done writing it and time to market it, which is the hard part. That's when the real work begins, to be honest, is when you're done with the book.
I agree with you. And I feel like it's the same thing with a podcast. Like, yeah, okay, you can go and create the launch of it. The launch of it is step and repeat. It's the same thing. I sell my entire system to do that, right? Step and repeat. This is what we do. What happens afterwards, though, is the key differentiator in how well your podcast does. What does your marketing look like? Are you trying to challenge yourself and become that subject matter expert in whatever field you're doing? Are you pitching yourself to be on, different, media platforms, not just your podcast? Are you going on other podcasts? How are you marketing your show? It's the same idea. How are you marketing your book? And I think that I don't know. I just think that the whole thing is just really interesting to me because, again, a lot of people just spend the time on the creation piece and then they don't spend the time on the marketing side of it. And that is the piece that is the most important thing. That is the thing that's going to get your product, your book, your podcast into the hands of somebody else. So when you're creating your strategy, how far in advance should you be planning your PR strategy? So let's say you have a book today, okay, so when this series is going live, it's going to be January. So it's January. My book is going live in January. What should I have done over the last few months? Like, what does that strategy look like? You don't have to give us all your secrets, but just some,
Yeah, I'm not going to give you all the secrets because those are for our clients. But I will tell you that if you're just thinking about strategy now, when your book is launching this month, you're like 4 months too late, right? This should have happened 4 months ago. Now, we also work with a lot of clients that are shooting for New York Times bestseller list and USA Today bestseller lists, right? If people haven't heard, they got rid of the Wall Street Journal bestseller list just this month. And so there used to be the Wall Street Journal list. There used to be the USA Today bestseller list. And the USA Today is still around. And then we have the New York Times bestseller list. Okay. So a lot of entrepreneurs want to hit these lists, right? And they're like, I think I can be a bestseller. I don't know how. So educating yourself with what that looks like and what it's going to take to get you there as far as time, money, and energy, I think to have expectations. If you're going for New York Times, you need to have at least 6 to 9 months of preparation beforehand, right? You also need to know that you're going to investing in a New York Times bestselling strategist is going to be key. We have one on staff that comes in and does the strategy for us while we do the PR, but that's going to be an expense as well.
Yeah.
PR is absolutely crucial for New York Times, also for USA Today, and bringing in a strategist for that. So New York Times, you want to be thinking 6 months ahead of time. USA Today, we want to look at least 5 months ahead of time. And we're talking strategy. That means we're pitching your book out to like magazines. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you're self-publishing, I would say give yourself 3 months before the book to really kind of start strategizing. You want to start looking at what podcasts can you go on beforehand. You want to ask those podcast hosts to hold the podcast if they can until the week of your publication. You also want to pick a tight deadline on your publication date. It's going to publish on this day. Typically, most, if not all, traditionally published books and hybrid publishers publish on a Tuesday. So you want to pick a Tuesday publication date because that gives you Monday to like get everything ready, and then you publish on a Tuesday, and then it gives you the rest of the week to like figure out publishing. So you want to pick a publishing date, and then you want to work backwards 3 months from that. What podcasts do you want to go on? Are there any reporters that you can reach out to share? Are you going to be focusing on local media? Do you know how to reach out to local media? And, you know, what kind of Instagram lives can you do during the week of your publication? And then a launch team. You know, who's going to help support your launch? Put that together. I would say at least 50 people that are going to help you launch the book. That's really kind of where you want to get started.
Love that. And when you think about something like a press release, what is the timing that you would want to, like, you obviously you don't want to send it out too far in advance, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you're kind of like overshooting and people are like, okay, whatever. I don't know, because I don't know. I used to work in PR back in the day, like a long time ago before I even started my business. And you have to be so timely, you know, but like you don't want to send something out too far in advance that, you know, it's months early and people aren't paying attention. But then, you know, do you send it out the week before? Is that?
Yeah. So you actually brought up a great topic, which is press releases. Press releases really don't move the needle on anything anymore. They used to, not as much anymore. So we can send out a press release on behalf of a client if they want that newsworthy attention. Mm-hmm. And there's actually kind of a going trend right now. You know, there's a lot of these pay to play entrepreneur PR firms going on right now.
Like be featured in Forbes and you're like,
exactly,
no, $700. Like,
right. Be featured in Forbes for $700. For $99, I'll get you featured on the Today Show and USA Today and blah, 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 all of these websites. And all they're doing is sending out a very cheap press release, and they're putting their name on it so that their name gets great SEO. Yeah. Just to let you know. And so they're paying money to get your name on a press release. It has nothing good to do with your business. So press releases are good for a couple things these days. A book launch is a great thing because it gets you out and you can link to it, right? When you're pitching media. We do press releases for our clients when their books come out. Mm-hmm. If their book publisher doesn't do it already, you know, like I said, we work with a lot of traditionally published authors, so their book publishers usually do them. If they don't, we'll do it. It's not going to give you really much of anything other than maybe a little ego boost of like, here's a press release, my book's finally out. If you want that, totally cool, right? Yeah. So I would say,
pitch, though. Yeah. You have to pitch. Like you can have a press release and that's great, but you actually have to physically still pitch the book.
Exactly. You do. Yeah. The press release isn't going to get you any media coverage other than it'll go up on some websites, but it won't give you actually media coverage, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that you need to keep that in mind. So, but if you're going to do a press release, I would do it on publishing day, on the day the book comes out.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, I've heard of some people wanting to do it like far in advance, like months in advance. And it's like you've just kiboshed your own launch because no one's going to care when you actually launch it.
Why? That doesn't make any sense.
I know.
It doesn't make any sense. Why?
I don't know.
It's in 3 months, I'm going to be doing this thing. And by that time, you're going to forget about it.
Exactly. There was one podcast we launched within my agency, and podcast's a little bit different, but it was a pretty high profile podcast. And we sent out a release for it, which you typically probably wouldn't send out a press release for a podcast, but we did anyways. And people actually picked it up, which was really cool. But same thing. We literally sent it out like 4 days before it went live. We were like, you know, the day the trailer went live was the day the press release went out. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that makes a lot of sense to me because, you know, you pick up this thing and it's not like, you know, a massive story, but it's still something you can write about. Right. And it actually did well. I think we had like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of coverage just for a podcast, which I thought that I was like, okay, that's actually I thought it was pretty cool. I have no benchmark to market against, but I thought it was cool.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, I would say that that's a win.
Thank you. Okay, good. That's good to know. I love that. Okay, so when now that we're planning our PR strategy, everything's kind of coming together. They've hired you because they're smart. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Obviously. How do you start to use all three of these different outlets interchangeably? Your book, your PR, your speaking gigs to build your overarching brand?
Yeah. So you want to obviously it all starts with the brand. And that's why you were kind of talking about like, would you write the book first and then do the brand? No, it all starts with the branding as a whole. So you have your brand and your brand messaging. You have your website, your branding is on there. You have your book, which is kind of how I see, the book is kind of like the supporting character behind the brand messaging. And then you are the spokesperson of the brand. And then the book is kind of coming in as, the assistant spokesperson and the, really kind of the business card into the brand, so to say, sharing the overall message. So now we have you on TV talking about the book, talking about the strategies in the book and things of that nature. And now we want to get on to speaking engagements, right? So now you have to be able to use the book and the brand to then and the TV segments to create a sizzle reel. We create sizzle reels for all of our clients and then use those to book speaking engagements on the topics because now you're an authority, you're a thought leader in that space. Use those pieces that you've put together to now book speaking engagements. And those speaking engagements, you can put up a profile on like e-speakers, for example, where you use the sizzle reel that we create for you with some images and things of that nature. And you really have to focus all of it kind of on the same core message. But one of the things of having a book is, when you're pitching speaking engagements and now you have media coverage behind you, is it kind of puts you to the top of the list as far as, who they're going to choose, I would say. They obviously need to see that you're a great speaker, but you also now have, media coverage behind you. You have proof of that media coverage with the great sizzle reel. You have a book. You're definitely a lot more of a credible source when you're looking at speaking engagements than somebody who comes in without any of that. You have put yourself to the top of the list as far as getting chosen, which is really the goal of all of this, to be able to leverage and scale to the next level.
Love that. I love that. And then when you think about even too, if you're at a speaking engagement, you have something tangible that you can give away to people, right? That you can sell and you're adding, more income back into your business, or you can give them away or give something away and you kind of build it back. It's really cool because it's all so interchangeable. And it really is like a bigger overarching strategy. But I don't know that a lot of people, I don't know that a lot of authors, a lot of podcasters, a lot of creators put enough intention and attention into what that strategy should look like for their business.
Yeah. And one of also one of the bigger kind of overarching strategies too, especially a lot of people that are hitting, New York Times lists and USA Today bestseller lists are pre-selling their books in bulk to speaking engagements. So for example, if they have 10 speaking engagements and the speaking engagement is paying them $5,000, a lot of times they will say, you know what, instead of you paying me $5,000, why don't you pre-order 250 copies of my book, which is the same price.
Right.
And now they do 10 speaking engagements. They've each pre-ordered 250 copies of their book. They've now pre-sold 2,500 copies of their book. In order to hit a USA Today list, you should probably go into the USA Today, into your pre-order, your pub date with, let's say, 5,000 pre-orders. You're now halfway to your pre-order number.
Wow, that's smart.
Okay, so there's a strategy behind this, and we help our clients try and figure out the strategy and what speaking engagements to kind of look at and how to pre-sell these speaking engagements and give them, the overall strategy behind this. We have some of our clients that have gone into pub date with 10,000 pre-orders because they've taken all of these pre-orders, but also, speakers like that, because now when they're making all their advertisements, now they can say like the first 100 people get a free book and it gets butts in seats. So now they're getting more people into the seats. So, from a speaker perspective, you can say now, the speaking people can now get more butts in seats, which is important to them because they're always concerned about getting people to show up. So now it solves their problem as well.
I love that. I love that. I think that is genius. Yeah, that's really, really smart. And then you can just continue to do, like, you can just continue doing that after your book is launched. You can, pay this fee, whatever the fee is, and buy X amount of copies of my book, or
Exactly. And
whatever that looks
that's
like.
a lot of, exactly. And that's a lot of how speakers and authors are working together is I have a speaker fee, but I'll reduce it if you buy 100 copies of my book, I'll reduce my speaker fee by $2,000.
Yep.
And that's how, but this is the kicker is if you're looking, you have to be working with some sort of strategist that can help you get your book orders into the right sales funnels so that they count for these best-selling lists, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can't just order them all from Amazon. You have to order them through like certain book scanning websites and there's a process. So you need to work with a professional in order for those to count. If you're trying to go for like a USA Today
Yep.
or a New York Times, like you need to work with a professional in order for these orders to kind of go in. And I'm giving you like some really nitty-gritty secrets.
I know. I'm like, hold on here.
Yeah. In the book industry won't talk about.
I love that. Never before heard other than here.
Yes.
Love
Yes.
it. Amazing. Lauren, before we wrap up today's episode, is there anything that you feel like we may have missed when it comes to creating a strategy, and or maybe one place where our listener can start?
I think that one of the things that people need to do is they start with setting a pub date and work backwards from that.
Yep.
Please do not do this, throw spaghetti at a wall and hope it sticks, because it won't. I promise you, it won't. Work with somebody that can create a strategy for you and like figure it out. But also know that there's different rates for different kinds of agencies that you work with. If you have a low rate, you're going to work with a freelance publicist or strategist,
Yep.
which is not us. Like we're a boutique PR agency. So like we'll get to that probably later, but you have to kind of take a look at that. Like it's a lot of work. But if you have goals and you are dedicated, like you can make it happen. Just don't succumb to the PTSD and just give up at book marketing, because that's where the real work and the real fun begins.
I love that. Amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren. I appreciate this.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining today's conversation with my guest, Lauren. I hope you're able to take all of the tips that she's implemented today and transform them into your own journey as well. Be sure to check out all of the links below for ways to connect with Lauren and myself, and let us know what you think of this episode by leaving a 5-star rating if you loved it, and letting us know by sending us a message on Instagram. I love hearing from you, and I love hearing how these conversations impact you. So please reach out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next one.